Hey, family. Today's guest is Michele Kajiwara. Michele Kaj, as she's known by her friends, is a senior vice president of premium seating sales for AEG. And I just love how Michele is able to bring her perspective to sports and represent for women in so doing. But the reason she's here today is to share a lot of how her personal life influenced her and how she's taking that influence into the business place and teaching us from it. Michele is a graduate of USC, where my own kids graduated from. Fight on. And I think if I had to define her in one word, it would be joy. Gratitude is a challenge in selecting one word for her because she lives in such gratitude. And I have so much gratitude to her for joining us today. So come on and listen, Michele Kaj. Michele, I'm so happy. Listen, our family is popped up to talk with you today, girl. And you and I haven't spoken for a while either, right?
I know. It's been way too long. Way too long, Janice.
I think the last time we actually saw each other, we were in China.
Yes. If you can believe, that was probably the last really big international trip that I did before COVID and before the world changed. And it was also that trip that we were in a little bit of a situation where we didn't know if the game was actually going to happen because there was so much political unrest at the time that we were in Shanghai. And so that trip was really special for a lot of reasons, not just because I got to meet you and Brett, but because we pulled something off that we thought might not actually even happen. And I think we gave everybody a really memorable trip. And I certainly logged that one up as one of the greatest member benefit and trips that we've ever been able to do, because we had LeBron, who was in Shanghai. It was, restaurants and all the cool things. And just being able to bring everybody together, such a unique and dynamic group, was just awesome. So,
well, you guys really did pull something off spectacular there. And you do that every day. And I say you, not just talking about AEG, but I say you talking about Michele. Michele Kaj is this person to me who has, by virtue of her work, this brilliant opportunity to impact a lot of lives. But a lot of people have impacted you in your life as well, Michele. So we've got a moment to sit here and chat. I really want to start from the beginning. I shared with the family already a lot that impresses me about you, but that came from somewhere. And I think the family, as well as I, really want to know, take us back a little bit. I mean, you're such a kid, you don't have that far back to go, but a lot has happened.
Yes, a lot's happened. Absolutely. So, when I think about the people that have impacted me the most, it's got to start with my mom. And she was born actually in an internment camp. So she was the first baby born there in a barn. Her family didn't have anything, right? All the Japanese Americans were put into these camps and had
Where was her camp? Where was
figure out life. She was in Tan Fran. So she was born there. She spent the first year or so of her life there. And then when her family got out, they had to reinvent who they were, what their livelihood was going to be, and how they were going to support this growing family. And they did so in Northern California. And
how long were they encamped?
The total years was probably, I want to say, at least a year or so, because my grandmother was pregnant when she went in, had my mom while she was there, and spent a few more months while in camp. So I can't speak to an exact time frame, but long enough where they had to figure out what their day-to-day was going to look like, how they were going to sustain this firstborn kid of theirs, and all of the worries and all of the things that I'm sure parents have to think about in general were amplified because they were in such this unique space, right?
Hey, Michele, a lot of people in our family listening right now may not be educated to the camps just by virtue of where they are in life themselves and the education they may or may not have had. Can you talk a little bit really to help them understand how these internment camps were set up, where they were set up, what it was about? And then after you do that, I really want you to share, if your family has shared with you, what it felt like to them, how it impacted them. But let's step it back a little bit and help everybody to be on the same page about what we're talking about.
Sure. I'll try to distill it down to, and it's a very complicated, or maybe not so complicated situation that happened.
But a big situation.
A big situation where in the United States, there was a perceived threat of Japanese Americans retaliating and or being certainly a marginalized group of ethnic people, which we are seeing a lot more of in present day, where there is a targeted race that they felt, the government felt, needed to be controlled and contained. And so a lot of where we were displaced to became or were racetracks. So where there was a lot of land that they could repurpose as living quarters, right? Stables. My mom was literally born in a barn. And fun fact, we just a few years back had her 75th birthday at Santa Anita Racetracks. And we called it Back to the Track because we can kind of celebrate the life that she's been able to live after being born in an actual stable. But yeah, largely a lot of racetracks in Northern California. Utah was another one. There's a lot of locations. I think there's one on the way to Mammoth. And so these became these internment camps where Japanese Americans were living in pretty squalid, living situations and had to survive. It was cold. You didn't have a lot of provisions. In most cases, they were asked to pack up at a moment's notice and just go. And so they left behind all of their belongings and their houses. And
how much notice did your family remember getting, Michele?
I don't actually remember, but what my grandparents told me is their neighbors, they had such a great relationship with that they maintained and watched over their property the entire time that they were gone, so that when they came out, they actually had a home to come back to. They actually had a living situation that wasn't completely dilapidated after all that time. And so they were so fortunate. And you call out family, and it's the people around us and the communities that we create that you just never know how people are going to come to your rescue. And that was extreme, but they certainly were looked after they came back. And so I remember my grandfather was doing, I think they were allowed to go off property, the men maybe were, to do kind of some side jobs, and he would drive a milk truck and have to make deliveries and work all hours to come back. And
is he allowed to keep that money? You got to really make it clear for our listeners.
It's all really fuzzy to me, and I'll be honest, I was so young when my grandparents passed that I didn't get that time, and I need to do that with my mom. There's since been articles written about her experience in this camp, but they weren't given a lot of time. I think they knew it was coming, but I can't, again, speak to a specific time frame. And I know not enough to, do everything right.
And regardless of the time you had, you didn't have the space and the right to take your things with you.
Suitcases, if that.
Yeah. I have a girlfriend whose parents were encamped, and she said that her parents, her dad's mental state, as she knew it going in, he was a really strong man, and he stayed strong for about 8 or 9 months. And then he crashed, and her mom ended up being the strength for the family. And so there were grandparents in that. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the grandfather who was not allowed to go with them for some reason. So the family got split as well.
Interesting.
So, Yeah. So it is interesting because, as you mentioned, we're right back around to people looking at a race or a group of people in a certain way and expressing their own fears or insecurities. And let's call it what it is, hate. In a modern day when we've got so much of everything, including promise and opportunity. But when we think about your parents, your grandparents being encamped, bring us a little bit forward to your mom and your dad. And remember, we're talking about all those things that help make you the wonderful you who I'm such a fan of.
So I say that my mom has had so much of the impact in my life because having gone through that and coming out and her family making a name for themselves and then getting married. And then my dad contracted cancer when we were very young. So she was raising two children. And what's really interesting about the time that I was able to observe how her and my dad were able to fight through this disease was pretty remarkable because he opted to not do chemotherapy. He elected to do a natural therapy, which at the time was called the Gerson therapy. And so I'm 7 years old, and this is so like 40 plus years ago, right? I was watching my mom go to Berkeley. We were living in Northern California at the time, but buy just bags of carrots and spinach and natural, organic, everything. And she would juice for him. And so it was a completely natural diet. We went down to Mexico and Steve McQueen was down there, I think it was, because he was on the same diet and path. And my dad just really educated himself around how to do this more holistically and organically. And he lived years longer than they gave him, but she had to survive my dad, raise two kids, and we got to do a lot of the things. Now, again, you talk about history coming full circle, not just around, race, but now in the health food industry, how it's all juices again. I mean, I was not eating chocolate. I was eating carob chips. I wasn't eating Cheetos. I was eating rice cakes. Like, we had a very healthy house because so much of what we put into our bodies help sustain us, cleanse us, nourish us, and can eliminate a lot of the toxicities that live and thrive in our systems. And so that was at the time super out there, but now it's back, right? And it's
I just want to throw an ad out there for all of our family. And Michele is just teaching us so much, and she hasn't even gotten over 7 years old yet. But here's the thing: you're teaching us about what we allow to be fed into our heads, impacting our spiritual and our mental state, and what we feed into our bodies, impacting our bodies and our total health state. So, this lesson of what we let enter our consciousness, our mind, our body is very impactful to how we gain the strength to live and how we're able to enjoy the process.
100%. And you'll hear this thread, which, again, you say strength, but it's this grit, this perseverance, this mental fortitude that allows me to look back on key times in my life that, especially through my mom having endured a lot of this stuff, I'm able to recognize as a choice and a way forward that we can manifest for ourselves, that we can control, because you can't control all these things that are happening. So you have to try to take hold of whatever mental fortitude or whatever things that you can grasp. And so when my father passed away, we eventually moved to Los Angeles. My mom remarried. He worked so hard. He never made excuses. He never did anything but live this very authentic life to him, and provided for our family now, even after he's gone, in a way that, he never needed or wanted credit for. He just humbly did it. And so I look at a lot of the themes throughout these impact areas of my life where I've been able to see strength, courage, perseverance, humility, honor. And a lot of that just comes from my family, which I hope then has been able to translate to my professional life, the friendships and relationships that I have, so that I can show up knowing, look, life is short, life is a celebration, and it's what we make of it. And we've got to recognize our past so we can better shape our future, and then just live fully in the moment, right? So that's the reflection point, is like, okay, we've had this colorful life, and we have so much to look forward to and anticipate and appreciate, but there's just nothing like living in these moments and having these conversations where something new and beautiful and amazing can happen, because it all goes by very fast.
Yeah, and it's so amazing for me because the opportunity to listen to you share and teach in this way is just brilliant. You are the one who typically is asking all those questions and turning that into beyond dialogue, into actionable, things and processes that matter with great outcomes. And so the ability to listen to you teach and teach in such a humane and personal way is brilliant for me, because one of the things that I promised at the front of this conversation is that not just women, but men who are listening, allies of each other, are going to learn a lot from you, because your life has been so impacted and impacting. And I want you to talk a little bit about, we've got the platform in the background for how your family as an American family experienced America in the good and the bad of it, right? Or the bad and the good of it. Let's talk about you now. So you took this life that your family had presented you with, you coupled that with your own education, and tell us about your journey now as a young woman. And we're going to lean in on the career, but we want to understand how the personal has been able to flourish, or the difficulties along the way, as many women and many people do have to get there. But can you share that a little bit before we go into the life lessons of teaching people how to live their life? Let's hear some of the journey of your life, the right decisions and the mistakes too.
Yeah. So another huge moment of impact that shaped my life and the way that I intentionally want to live is I spent a semester in Spain during college, where I was able to meet my very best friends. It exposed me to a myriad of other cultures. And at the time, this was in 1993, there was no internet. There was no social media. Can we remember that? I'm just so glad that I lived through a time where I didn't know how to look at my phone every 5 seconds and wish I was somewhere else, or look at somebody else's life, or have a distraction, and it's a beautiful tool, but it's also a little distracting. And so when I look back on this time that I was in Spain and I was able to travel and I had a backpack and you had just really simple things, I had the fullest life experience because I was all in on it. And that was the only place that I wanted to be, with those people in those countries, completely out of my comfort zone, stripped of the food, the weather, the time zone, currency, language, take it all away. You're living at a señora's house and you've got all these new experiences. And I was voracious for those opportunities to explore. And all I wanted to do every weekend was go to another country and see what else was out there and meet new people and try different foods. And that was life-changing, insofar as it's never been something that I will forego or forfeit for a career or for anything, because travel has unlocked for me all the key ingredients in life, where you can be curious, you can learn, you can grow, and you can discover this incredible world that we have to live in. And I realize now, being able to look back on that time and being able to go back to some of the places I've traveled, that it's changing. it's changing a lot. I look at where I work, and the landscape of downtown LA is completely different than when I went to college here at USC. And so fight on. So yeah, I look at that experience and that semester in Spain as being a major impact moment where I am constantly challenging and looking to have that next adventure, because it fills my soul so much, that getting out of my comfort zone, appreciating other people, other cultures, and just the way to be a better human means you've got to see humanity in all of its splendor and color and vibrations, and be able to bring that back home. And again, be really humbled by how much and how evolved other peoples and cultures are. And so that's the gift for me that really keeps giving. So that's been on my journey constantly, and still is something that I am unapologetic about doing, because it's just so important. And I hope people on my staff and everybody that I know, they know this connection for me to travel is always my calling, and this beacon of, this is why I work, right? There was this show, Emily in Paris, that was on recently, and they stopped for a moment because she's an American living in Paris, and they said, one of my favorite lines is, they just said, you've got to work to live. And we have a segment in our department culture here called Work to Live, where we just share stories about where we've been, what we've seen, what else we can explore in Los Angeles, and how we can use the resources from our work, right? So that we can earn money, but not just to earn the money, but that we can apply it to a more enriched and fulfilled life. And that's a really neat time of sharing, and us being able to get to know each other a lot more just in the office. So it's not like, how was that vacation? Great. And then you're out of the kitchen and you never even talk about how amazing Iceland was. So this gives us some intentional time carved out to speak to our travel experiences and just life. So,
well, you're filling me so much. I mean, first, I just got to say this. The corner of a picture here, if I were to move this camera a little bit, would be of my husband, Bernie. And Bernie, who has the love of my life, taught me so much, and we shared so much. Bernie taught me to love travel. I really would proudly call myself a homebody. And what I really was a fear body, because I had a lot of fears as an African American and as a female of traveling around and going actually any place, not just on an airplane, but on a bus, in a car, or across a certain street. And so Bernie taught me to love travel, and we decided that as we had children and we kept our commitment, we would give them experiences instead of things and toys for Christmas and for holidays. And when you're talking about that, you're just bringing him so full to me, as he transitioned a year ago, just over a year ago, of Alzheimer's. And I'm so grateful I have memories, that live present. So thank you for that. But, there's something else you're doing. You're really teaching us that we have to learn to look at the world outside of ourselves. And I'm going to go ahead then, although your life is so exciting and there's so much more to share on the personal side, and move in a little bit for our family, because there's so many people who can take so much from your thoughts and your truths about work. We were told when I was growing up that you eat to live, you don't live to eat. And you've added another element of that, which is you work to live, you don't live to work. And there are a lot of people right now who really are thinking in terms of working to live as being working to sustain.
Sure.
But sustainability and actually living it in a personal sense, when we remove it from the corporate world, are very different things, aren't they, Michele?
Right, for sure. And by no means am I saying that everybody has the same privilege to be in a job and select where they get to work, right? Because for a lot of people, it is just a self-sustaining necessity of life to be able to put food on the table. And I don't for 1 second discount that. I'm very blessed in that I get to say that I can work to live. And so in that regard, I just want to be fully respectful that this is, I know that a lot of people don't have it.
But they have other ways they can.
They have other ways.
They have other ways, whether it is a little window garden, or whether it is dedicating time to the school near them, whether they have kids in their family or not. And you teach beautifully on this, that people can find ways to fulfill themselves outside of work that helps them to appreciate they do have a fuller life than they might have thought. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Very well said. I believe that all of that sort of comes together in this way of, look, if you can try to understand your purpose and who you are and the way that you want to show up in the world, that's going to be a consistent thread through your work, through your life, and how you present yourself to the world at large. And so I do believe that purpose is connected. And if you can find purpose in what you do at your work, for me, I try to do as much good for as many people as I possibly can. And that is what energizes me to get up every day. And whether it's in my neighborhood, whether it's in the work that I can do, it's how many people can I touch and amplify their life in some way, big or small. That's what fuels me, and that's what feels really, really good. And so that's kind of where I'm able to carry this consistency through everything that I do. And that's also why it doesn't feel, sometimes it feels like a lot of work, but it feels less like work and more of just what's fulfilling a purpose. And so then I don't really call the work-life balance a thing, because sometimes something takes a little bit more precedent than others, and there's not an equal delivery on time towards everything that you want to do in life between work and living. But I do believe that if you enjoy your work and if you can find purpose and fulfillment in it, it becomes less about the actual job, and it just becomes a blend of everything that you want and focus your energies on in general. And so that blend, I think, is where you can find some really healthy manifestations. And so that's what I try to do. But it's not easy.
And you know, I do teach that it can be simple, but simple doesn't always mean easy, right?
It doesn't, but you have to continue to try, and you have to sort of realign your purpose, right? So that you're always intentional. I think if you just kind of keep doing things willy-nilly or without any sort of North Star guiding while you're doing it, it can feel very empty. And that's where I've been super fortunate, is that I have an incredible job that allows me to travel, that allowed me to meet you, allows me to grow and learn and listen. And yes, we sell premium, but I'm not really selling anything to people who believe that I could be a resource, or that I could be somebody that can actually provide something that they don't already have that could benefit them and their employees, and et cetera, et cetera. So I look at it completely different than actually just being in a sales job.
Yeah, and it is so much different than that. I mean, because I've seen you minister to people, I've seen you give it's beyond advice. It's like having a therapist on call. And I've seen you do it in this soundbite, and I've seen you do it if it took that long to get people right. And there's so much to learn from that. And I'm so grateful that you share out loud what you live and what you've learned. One of the things that I want you to talk about as well, because honestly, if I were asked to describe you in one word, I would be tugging between she is a grateful person and she is a joyful person. And I think I'd let joyful win, because I think part of your joy comes from your gratitude, or your gratitude is an outshoot of your joy. There are a lot of people who are afraid to have joy right now. or who are experiencing things that they feel has ripped the joy from them. Whatever the circumstance, the reality is that joy is something that's not every day for them. And I remember you saying, oh, you know what? We always got to, be able to find joy in this or joy in that. And I think we were on a flight back, and you were just so, and people were exhausted. People were at all different stages.
Because our flight was canceled.
Right,
remember?
right. And you were like ministering to people, you were the therapist, and it's going to be okay. We're all going to be okay. And, get out of there. And it wasn't just that the flights were canceled. It was that, as you stated earlier, it was a kind of tenuous time. And you were keeping everybody so intact. But I want you to talk about, Michele, because I think it can be so helpful, how people gird up, how people get the joy, find the joy in the middle of whatever is going on. And for a lot of people, that's health and death right now, if we're going to call it as we see it. How do they find that joy? How do they get a, not so much a giggle, but at least a smile right now?
Wow, you said that so well. I do believe that joy comes from gratitude. That's not to say that life isn't hard. That isn't to say that bad things aren't going to happen to really good people. But it goes back to just a mindset of trying to focus on what we do have. And health is right up there. And that has been compromised in so many ways now with this pandemic. And, but I look at, what do I actually have? What do I actually need? And can I shore up the joy to just focus on the little things so the other things don't become distractions or take away from being centered on what is good? And look, some days it's really hard to have joy, but then I have to look outside myself. If I can't find it from within, it is surrounding yourself with people that bring you that joy and bring you the energy and that perspective. And I think that's one of the main things, Janice, is just the perspective, right? To know that no matter how bad you have it, there are people that are suffering far more. There's a lot of other scenarios and situations that are a lot tougher. But it's just a perspective. And we have to do our best to try to stay focused on what are the good things that I have? Who are the people that can help me manifest the best behaviors that I can produce for myself? And then when you have it, try to give that away so freely that you can be that sort of ministry to other people, right? And you can start to create a ripple effect around you of, even if they're not joyful, you can just say something that brings them joy, right? And that gives you so much back. It's like this kinetic exchange of energy and happiness. And so sometimes even when I don't feel great, that's when I just want to go hug somebody else and be like, you're amazing. And thanks just for being an incredible friend or resource to me. And that's happened a lot during COVID.
Oh my God, girl, you've got my glasses fogging up and my eyes here. Oh my God, Michele.
Because you are this person, JBH.
You teach from such a real place. I know you teach from such a real place, and you share so transparently. Oh my goodness, somebody just got healed in that moment, girl. Somebody just got healed in that moment.
But I tell you, this is giving me joy. I just, it's real. You can feed off of it. You can feel it with other people that need it, that have it, that deserve it, that it is a real energy if you can just be dialed in enough to a conversation or to another person to acknowledge it. And, we're on a Zoom call,
Yeah. Michelle, Pastor was saying, so on the way to minister to one of his congregation, he was leaving his beautiful home in a gated area in a lovely car. And he was thanking God for those things as he was going out to, minister to this person. And something happened between the journey of getting there and returning from there, where his prayer on his way home was, thank you for my kidneys. Thank you for my lungs. Thank you for my vision. Thank you for my sight. And that prayer kind of shifted. And although it was a prayer for smaller things, it was bigger, and I thought that is teaching. And that's kind of where you are about. Yeah, everybody doesn't have the same thing, but everybody has the same occasion for joy. And you got more than somebody else. If you've got health, if you've got sanity, if you and it may come and go a little bit during the day, but it grounds you enough to be a part of a community, right? To be self-sustaining and hopefully you're giving to a community as well.
But I think that's important, the giving back part. I don't think you get to fully experience or recognize things if you're just always thinking about yourself and living for yourself. But if you have a community and you have a lot of people that you can give to, right, then I think that allows for you to receive a little bit more as well. It's got to keep moving. It can't just come one way, or it can't just go out, then you'll be so depleted, right? It's got to be this force that continues to multiply and move around so that it stays energetic. And I think that's really important what you just said.
I so love that you went back on that. One of the things that we see in social media, and we saw it really amplified during the Olympics, is this question of mental health. And we're talking about being joyful. And Pastor praising God for having things working. But Michelle, there were two schools of thoughts that were shared with me by one of my guests. And to boil it down, what she said was, when Simone Biles decided to pull out of the competition for the USA and her team, there were those who said she did the right thing and she took care of her personal and her mental health. There were others who said as forcefully, she let the team down and she pulled out late. During our intern graduation inside my own company, I shared that slide of her that showed her expressing that decision to pull out. And I asked them each not to chat it back, but to just write it down for themselves, whether she let the team down or whether she did the right thing. Because these interns are at a place in their lives, as are many of our family members listening now, where they're going to be making decisions. And sometimes those decisions will feel as though they're letting the team down, whether that is grandma and grandpa who helped pay for you to go to school and now you blah, 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 or whatever. Or you may be in a job and you're making a decision that feels as though it lets the team down. But making decisions around one's mental health can sound like a heroic and a right thing to do. There are those who say you let the team down when you decide. And I have my own answers to that.
Okay.
But I'm here to learn from you. What's happening with people speaking up on mental health? And as comfortably as you can, are you able to talk about that with respect to, because so many of the people who are the stars of the place you work are also voices for many and voices to many. How is that happening as you witness it?
I think that's one of the most important things to talk about right now. And I'm so glad that with professional athletes and people who have huge platforms that they're able to have a conversation candidly about how they are functioning or not functioning at the level that is expected of them. And I think it's unrealistic to think that this hasn't been its own sort of pandemic, this mental wellness that people just haven't been able to speak to for a long time, but have suffered through very quietly and painfully. And I look at what Simone Biles did. I think that people, even in the workplace, myself included, what good am I to the team if I know that I'm going to be a risk factor in my performance because I'm mentally not capable of sustaining or performing the job that's required of me? I think it's brave to be able to say that you're not entirely there, and you do yourself and you do your team, I think, a tremendous benefit by not showing up, injuring yourself, injuring somebody else if you're responsible for other people. I mean, there are so many detriments to pushing through beyond your capability. And I think there's so much courage in being able to understand and have enough self-awareness to know what your limitations are. And I think for so long, it's been looked at as something that is considered weakness, is considered just poor performance. And I think if you're going to be elite in anything, you have to understand how to optimize your performance. And if you're mentally not there, that's as powerful as not being able to physically be there, right? Like your mental and physical state are so intertwined and so the drivers of how anybody's going to perform well in anything. And I read a book called Thrive by Arna Huffington, and she was somebody who just hard charging business, entrepreneur, immigrant, family, everything else, had so much to prove until she passed out, hit her head on the corner of her desk, and had to have sort of this come to Jesus moment around like, what am I doing? And why am I pushing so hard at the detriment of my own health and well-being? And, you know, thank goodness that was a sustainable injury, but like it could be worse for people. And so you don't want to ever get to that place where it could be damaging forever, or it could be damaging in a more serious way. And so reading her book and looking at what you're eating, like we talked about earlier, how much sleep you're getting, how available people are to having a conversation with you in a safe environment, which doesn't always happen in the workplace, right? About how you're doing. Because I could have this incredible business plan and I could have, you know, all of the metrics and technology and rollout and goals and all these amazing things that what we need, right, for a successful roadmap. But if you don't have the right people to do the actual work, like that all just goes in the garbage can, because who cares?
You're right.
None of that matters unless the people that are in the room to do the job can actually show up and actually want to, right? And so I think it comes back to being super present as well. If you can't be present and give everything that you have to what you've committed to do, then just don't do it.
I have a little disservice. It's such a disservice. You're right. And this one little girl said, and I think the question was, did Simone do the right thing? And this one little girl, we're talking about preteen now, said, oh, I like her so much better now than I did before. And didn't you like her? Yes, I loved her, but I like her better now. Well, why do you like her better now? Because she's like me. And she went on tearfully. She went on tearfully to express, Michelle, how she didn't feel good and she didn't want to show up for her team. And everybody told her she had to go anyway. And she did really bad. And she felt like she let the team down by showing up. You know?
Yeah.
But before, she was being told she let the team down not to show up and she should rally. And so I thought, she had a very touching moment, and she was like, I liked her better. That's not going to be everybody's response, adult or kid, nor kid. But I thought there was something so teaching in her lesson from what she saw.
But I think the more that people are able to share and come out in a brave way, you're going to find a lot more people that can connect to that and give them now the space to understand that what they're feeling is okay.
Well, she said, I can still be a hero.
Yeah,
that's what she said.
Oh, I love it.
I can feel bad sometimes, and I can still be a hero. Now, she's a preteen. She'll say that much more eloquently one day. One day she'll say, I can be a shero. And I hope she's doing it now. She's been told you can be a shero too.
Sure.
But think about it. A preteen. I don't feel good all the time. So maybe, but if Simone Biles can not feel good and say, I'm going to wait and I'm going to feel right when I go out there, then I can be a shero too. And I don't have to feel good all the time to be one.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think it's it's not as delicate as maybe we think it is, but there's also that mechanism that, like, Simone Biles she rallies all the time to get to where she is. Saying I don't feel good or I need to sit this one out doesn't mean that you're not grinding, if you're not persistent, if you don't have grit, if you don't have all of those things. She does, right? Like exponentially. And so to be able to admit that you don't have it right now, I think, again, that's a tremendous act of courage, because it isn't a cop-out. People who just say, like, I can't show up today, I don't have sympathy for that, just because, you can't pull yourself together. I do believe that there is something to having the strength to persevere when it makes sense.
And people know you, they value you when that happens, because just this last week, I got my booster, and I'm at that age, and I was talking with a client, and I said, oh, excuse me, I just said, and I went like that, and she was like, oh, what's up? I said, no, I got my booster, and, I want to show for you, because, in this day where we're all meeting virtually, Michelle, we're showing up so much more clearly. You see it all, right? And sometimes we're more present on screen than we are in the room. We just don't get to smell the food. But to get to the point, she said, I've done business with you for over 20 years. This is the first time I've ever seen you wince about anything. I'm so glad to know you're human. Can you just go rest, and we have this meeting later? And we laughed about it because there was no room on the calendar if we were going to reschedule. That was going to happen within the next 2 months. But she was like, well, why don't we just relax on this one?
I love that. Well, yeah, you've earned that. It's not like you're somebody that ever says, like, okay, I need another day. I'm in pain, or this. Yeah, we all got aches and pains and things that are challenging and tough to, like, get through. But I think people that are high performing, like yourself, Simone Biles, when you can actually be human and show some human expression and be authentic, it gives space for other people to feel all right about it too.
Like that little preteen.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But that's beautiful. I love that, because it does, I think, help people in this, mental wellness game. We're showing up from COVID, and we've done really well with video. But I could also tell you, Janice, there were so many times in the last 17 months that I really struggled to pull it together for a Zoom call. And I did. But the minute the camera was off, I was not in a great place. Mm-hmm. And I was able to mask that a little bit because of the selective times that I was on camera, but nobody got to see and feel my energy and, ask me how I'm doing and have all of those interactions in real life that give you a lens into how somebody's really doing, because you could see their energy, you could feel their, what they're going through a little bit. And so I do believe that it's even more important now on the other side of coming back to the office and coming back into these social environments, that we're really sensitive to reading the cues and asking people how they are, how they've been, and really showing a lot more of that humanity side of trying to get people to come back to a workspace that feels different. And I think there's been a lot of self-reflection during the last 17 months as well, more than ever, where, there were some moments of isolation. There were a lot of moments of doubt. People were way out of their comfort zone. There were so many things that impacted us. And so this conversation, I think, is so important around just checking in on how people are doing, and know that just how they show up isn't how they're feeling.
And
right?
Wow, how they show up isn't how they're feeling. That's so powerful. And there's a lot behind that maybe we have to talk about at another time, because it's big. It's really big. One of the things that you get to see is how people are expressing they want work life to look as we exit COVID. And even though we see the threat that it could get big again, especially entering flu season, and people have the right to make the decision about whether they vaccinate or not. Yep. Companies have to make decisions on one side, and employees are making decisions. What do you see happening, and how are people on the whole, expressing their ideas about what the new workplace and workspace will look like?
I think there's still some trepidation. I feel like we've been in this long enough now that most people have adopted in some way, shape, or form to what this environment looks like. And in Staples Center and for our company, we are requiring vaccinations. And so we're delicate.
So when I come to the suite, I'm going to get checked, or I'm going to show a card, or what's it going to look like?
Yeah. So that's on the staffing side, is that we're requiring vaccinations, and on the entertainment side, and when you come to the building, right now it's the proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test, all within the protocols of, it's been 2 weeks since your last vaccination. It's been,
do we get temp checks when we walk in?
What's that?
Do we get temp checks before we go in?
Nope, we're not doing that right now.
Okay, on the staff.
Think about how many people have to come through.
My goodness, that would be huge.
It's a lot.
How on the staffing side, Michele, so you're required to be vaccinated to go back into the office, but you can work from home without vaccination?
So I believe it's by October 1st that everybody needs to have proof of vaccination for employment.
Okay, all righty.
For employment. You're taking so right now, right now it's negative COVID test or the vaccination.
And you're responsible at the work level you are for more than one arena, more than one space. So that's a pretty big effort. You get a lot of test data that can speak to the marketplace, don't you?
Yes, and AEG, I believe, has done a good job of making sure that we are following all of the health protocols as mandated by the state and local officials. It's a lot to keep up on. We have multiple partners in this building, and we have a lot of members that we need to constantly be in communication with, and to make every reasonable effort to keep this a safe building without incident, and to provide a level of service to everybody that speaks to our commitment to being safe, being clean, being administrators of all of the right protocols, so that we are without question doing everything that we possibly can to bring back as many people as we can. And we've successfully done so through a reduced capacity building up to full capacity, which is where we are now. And we're ready to kick off the new season. Our schedules have come out and we're ready to go. So
I'm so looking forward.
Can't wait to see you here.
Being able to enjoy AEG in all its beauty. And, you know, I got to say this. Remembering when AEG was first being built as the Staples Center and the testimonials that were required to have it built in downtown LA, and witnessing every promise being kept, not only as the building was being designed and completed, but as it delivered to the community. I remember being so thrilled when BET moved the BET experience to AEG because of all of the splendor that AEG offers, but also all of the commitment to the community that Staples Center gives, which BET cares about. And so I remember when I first went there after it was built, and I'm an OG Suite owner.
I know,
and
are.
I remember going in and feeling the freshness and the beauty of it. And I say all of that to bring me to this point. The freshness and the beauty that I experienced the first time I ever stepped foot into what was then the Staples Center all those years ago.
Yeah.
It remains today. And I'm so looking forward. I'm just so looking forward post-COVID, when life is lively again, to attend live events and enjoy that, and enjoy it in the community spirit that nobody's been able to create the way AEG has. So I'm in love with that facility, not because it happens to be a really great architectural success. I'm in love with it because it sits in the middle of a community as a part of the community and finds a way for everybody to enjoy every event. I'm so looking forward to that. And I can't thank you for the work you and your team do. That helps not just me, but everybody who I know. And I didn't say somebody, I said everybody who I know who's had that experience has that experience.
Oh, thanks, JBH. That means so much. Oh my gosh. You have been our one of our legacy suite holders. And so you've seen Staples Center as this rock in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, and everything around us being built up and being regentrified, and all of the energy that's now coming into downtown. We do like to think that we're sort of the bedrock of all of that activity, and that we've been able to create moments and experiences that last a lifetime. When I tell you that unfortunately I had to be on a Zoom call for a member of ours that passed away during COVID, and it was so incredible to watch all the testimonies, his friends and family about this incredible man. And he was also a seat holder with us since the building opened. And I am not exaggerating when I say there was fewer than at least five stories about him at his celebration of life call that hinged on something that happened here. Because he was able to create and give and enjoy this space with so many friends and loved ones, and those experiences were so special and so bonding to the people that he was able to enjoy that with, and he had just this incredibly big heart. I was so humbled again to know that that's what we can give. We're not giving people just a game. We're giving somebody a seat and an opportunity to experience something that will stay with your family or colleague or whatever for life potentially. Great moments.
Wasn't it Elton John who said, "No, you gotta come back and get that right. Get that right. This is LA, and they don't let us get." I forget who it was. No, you gotta go
Oh my God, I love that. I love that.
But when we talk about we're talking about something much bigger and something that still is teaching that. And that is in one way, there's a lot in there too, but in one way, it's about how we do allow for how we to be a part of our community. Because you started out saying, we want to live, and you just describe how people work, being a part of the community, and everybody's not going to get from everybody else glamour job, and I know there's a lot of enjoyment that you have in that work, but I also know there's a lot of grind, a lot of hustle that has to be given. How do members of our family create that kind of energy in the workplace? Okay, so you can plan a garden at home. Maybe you can't at work, but when you are at how do you create that? And a lot of businesses are not as savvy nor as certain as AEG is about how to bring people back to work. So we've got people in our audience who manage work and who are part teams. How do they look out for themselves in these circumstances?
We're doing a lot of work on this right now, Janice, and I don't think that. And while I'm no expert, the work is being done with the people. Understand who your people are and what they value. It's going to be different across the boards. But there has to be some connection to what they value and what you value as an organization to have some kind of alignment around move in the same direction together. It was explained to me once where we're all kind of ships at sea, but we all get to the lighthouse somehow, right? So we all might come in a different way to this sort of North Star value or why we do anything. But we have to recognize and have very dynamic conversations with everybody because they are so all unique and dynamic. And so for us and for what we do, it is this really focused intention on trying to understand who our people are and giving them the space to have conversations around challenges that they're facing with either mental wellness or personal life, having some grace to understand that people are showing up with different challenges and we address those differently. And I think most importantly, it's giving everybody transparency, communicating and delivering on trust. Trust seems to be the thing that it all distills down to. People trust you because you care about them. They're going to do the job. People trust that you have their best intentions at heart. They're going to trust their career with you. If people trust that you're making decisions that are fair and equitable and have integrity, then they're going to trust that they're in a workforce that values them and that is doing the work to we talk about this, right? Provide diverse platforms to provide pay equity, to make sure that we're doing all of the requisite work to ensure that we're acting in your best interest. And so a lot of what I'm coming back to in this journey back from COVID is how do we establish trust? And when people trust you, they're likely to do better work for you. They're likely to not be another job. They're likely to have a conversation with you that is maybe more candid and honest, so that you can build a solution together instead of feeling so disconnected and so alienated from whatever this is that we're doing. They have to just go on their own and find another path or another lighthouse.
We've had so much conversation in different corporations around equality and that's such a big conversation. We're not going to cram that in this moment. I do got to tell you that I love the attention that you personally are giving to assure that you're able to be a great representative of why why both equity and equality matter. So I got to bow to you on that, and I'm going to talk with you on that.
We got work to do on that front, JBH.
We got to talk about that at a different time because there's so much more conversation. What we got to do is 4 for 4, though. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so as you know, I'm going to ask you 4 questions to which you're going to give me 4 answers. Okay, and we're going to see how well you do going 4 for 4. When you give me the answer, you got to tell me why that's your answer. You don't get to skate out of this one. Okay. All right. That listen now, I think you're really going to enjoy it though, because I don't know. I just know you got this joyful life that you love to share as you've been doing. So the first question then is, you get to have dinner with 4 people anywhere in time, past or present. They can have transcended or they can be alive now. We just don't allow you to future design them, okay? And you got to tell us who's going to be at your dinner table and why.
Oh my gosh, that is an incredibly hard question. Obviously, everybody has more than 4, but I'm going to try to be spontaneous.
Okay.
Okay. So in no particular order, and certainly not the only 4, but these are the 4 that come to mind right now. One is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I would love RBG. I would love to sit with her and understand her journey and all of the challenges and triumphs that she encountered to get to where she was, and get some projections for her on how she thought our future was going to be. I think she's incredibly interesting. So RBG. I would also go with Elvis. I just love him. I don't love the life that he lived necessarily, but I do think as a trailblazer, as somebody who had a lot of suffering and had a lot of success, he would have some really interesting stories to tell about what it was just like to live his life and have all of that superstardom at that time. Right. We talk about, I live between the internet or not having the internet and having the internet, no cell phones to cell phones. And, going back even further to what he was able to experience. I just think that'd be remarkable. Who else would I want to have dinner with? I'd like to sit with my grandparents again, because I didn't get enough time to actually, and this is something that I think about a lot and why I need to have more conversations with my mom, but she was so young at the time. But I would have loved to ask them what it was like to be herded up, carted away, and made to live in a horse stable for that time, and what it was like to be a Japanese American in the 1940s. I would love to talk to them about that. And I regret that I didn't get to when they were alive. So them and one more. Well, I'm talking to you, so I can check that box.
Yeah, we're good, girl.
We're good. We're good.
I'll be somewhere around there helping you serve that dinner, because I want to listen in.
I think I would want to talk to Bill Gates. I would just love to understand his philanthropic endeavors and what he elects to support with the billions of dollars that he has, how his mind works, because I'm not technical at all. I think I have a call into IT every other day. So just to get into a different mindset and a completely different human than the way that I operate and the way that I think, and to just get into his head, I think would be remarkable, just around all the things that he's been able to accomplish. So
oh my goodness. Yes, I am coming over to help you with that dinner.
Okay, great. If we can have them all at the same time, I think that would be really fun.
They all come at the same time. That's your dinner table. I would even suit up and serve to listen to that conversation. Okay, 1 for 4. Let's go.
Okay.
2 for 4. What books are you reading that you recommend to our family, and why?
One I already
4.
mentioned.
4.
Okay. One
Thrive,
I already mentioned.
Thrive
by
Ariana
Ariana
Huffington.
Huffington. Yes.
Mhm.
Just talking about sleep and just how important that is, and just how to not run yourself ragged and have some self-care and self-awareness. That book resonated with me a ton. I am currently reading a book called The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, and it is just a daily meditation. So it's not a sit down and read in a few sittings. It is a one a day, something from the Stoics that can be applied to real life, that is teaching me how to live with better intention, higher morals, and more control over the way that I think, that I act, and that I behave, and to not just be at the mercy of what life is serving you, because we have choices and we have to be able to choose how we want to show up. So,
oh wow, I may be adding that to my list, and with the idea of it as a gift forward to others. Thank you.
Oh yes, it is. And you know what? I posted that I was reading that on my Instagram with some other stories with just excerpts. And I probably know 5 or 10 people that have also purchased this book, and it's game changing because it's easy to commit to. It starts your day off, and it gives you something to think about. And it's just working on yourself constantly. And so Daily Stoic is another really great one. A fun one is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. I know a lot of people have read that, but his life story is
they think more of him as being that guy in that car on that commercial after he's done the movie.
Yeah, that's what I think about when I read it. Just this, hot guy driving a Lincoln, but his stories and the way that he grew up are so relatable in some ways to just my semester abroad and some of the other things, and the way that travel really gives you perspective, and this idea of being able to be alone with yourself actually is such a healing and mystical and magical time that we don't necessarily take for ourselves, just to reflect and regroup and to actually put some designs on how we want our life to be. And so his book was really great because there's a lot of funny stories, but there's also a lot of great life applications. So I think that's another good one. And then
I'm going to get that Daily Stoic though, because I think that, with travel coming up for me, and you remember pre-COVID, I was on the road 3 weeks out of the month. I think that I probably can pull that out after being seated. And what better time when you're not as quick to talk to the person next to you now with a mask on, to be able to use some of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm going to give a plug to my good friend, Paul Epstein, who is helping us with a lot of this purpose-driven leadership and culture. And his book is, why am I going to forget now? Playing Offense.
Okay.
And it's just a great book for leaders, for anybody, and not just leaders by title. Everybody can be a leader. So it is just how to lead by finding better connection points to the people that you work with, and how that in life can serve you so much better than just going by playbook, by X's and O's, and it's a very sports themed book because that's kind of where he came up. But it's just a great read on, and gives a lot of practical exercises around how to create a better culture.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to get all 4 of yours.
Every question is 4 questions.
I stay so well read by my guests, giving me the best referrals ever. And I'm pushing you way up here, girl. Oh okay, God, no. We're going 3 for 4. Okay. What are you listening to, and why?
I am listening to a lot of podcasts. One that speaks to me more than others right now is one called Meditative Stories. And it is in partnership with Thrive Global and Ariana Huffington's company, but it's called Meditative Stories, and it's by athletes, celebrities, writers, just every discipline.
Which platform are they on?
Let's see, Meditative Stories. I think you could just get it on your Apple Podcasts.
Okay.
Pretty accessible.
Well, if you're on Apple, I mean, you got Apple Music too, although a lot of people have gone to Spotify. Apple is still, like.
I know, just dominating.
Okay, what about music? What about music?
As far as music goes, oh my gosh, I'm so all over the place, and I'm certainly not current. It's a big joke in my office that I don't know any of the music that anyone listens to, so they create playlists for me.
My girl.
So I'm trying to get hip, but I listen to Hawaiian music all the time. It's like Hawaiian reggae. It just puts me in a good mood. I listen to it when I'm at my house. I listen to it when I'm walking my dog sometimes. It is happy. It is, joyful. It is just gives me such good vibes. And I'm from Hawaii. I was born there. And so it just connects me back to the motherland all the time. And Hawaii just holds such a special place in my heart. So I listen to a lot of Hawaiian reggae. And
okay, so we're gonna post it. So we'll get the name so that we can invite people to it from you. And then what other two music hopefully are you listening to?
Okay, what other music am I listening to? I'm really gonna try to think of something hip to say right now, but Drake, maybe a little bit.
Are you listening to the feud between Drake and Kanye, though?
I could listen to John Denver, and then I could listen to Hawaiian, and then I could listen to French rap music, and I could listen. My musical taste is just all over the boards. And so, what am I listening to? I'll just find a station, right? I'll say yacht rock, and I'll listen to that stuff for like hours, right? Like. It's all over the map, JBH. I don't have a great answer for you.
Okay, kid. Well, look, you just
go back
and see where you laid the longest, and we'll post that up for you. You're okay.
Yes.
Okay. That was 3 for 4, so we're on 4 for 4 before we're done. And that is the 4 greatest pieces of advice you've ever been given, by whom, and think in terms of sharing with our audience. We give homage to those who have helped us here in this.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love that. This was something an old boss told me, and it was around the time that I received some information from somebody that I wasn't particularly fond of, but it was good advice / information. But I was so caught up in who gave it to me that I wasn't hearing the message. And he simply said, Michelle, don't lose the gift because of the rapping. And that just has always stayed with me because it's so easy to get in your head about who this person is along a political line or in some, relationship or whatever that has already colored how you're going to receive the information. And that was such a beautiful way of letting me know that, like, you just listen enough to get what you can out of said message without looking at how it was delivered or who it was delivered by. And that one has always stuck with me, and I still try to use that to this day. So
awesome.
That was an amazing one. This is a quote, and it's kind of like advice, but it is one that resonates the most with me in life. And it's life is not measured by the number of breaths that we take, but by the moments that take our breath away. And I love that one so much because it isn't about how much. It's about what was the quality of it. And I can't peg that on any one person. It's a very highly published quote that's just out there. So that one I love and I live by. The work to live. I love that one, and I don't know who originated that, but it forever stays with me in that once my work becomes work, I'm no longer serving myself and I'm not living to my fullest potential. And so I look at that one. And then I'll give my mom one because I'll take it back to kind of the genesis of our conversation. I was having a really tough day the other day, and she's been really there for me in this last year. And so she is my biggest supporter, and I love her so much. And I was just sobbing one day, and she said, "Okay, honey, I hear you. I know what you're going through is hard, but get up and wash your face and get on with your day." And it was exactly what I needed to hear. It was like, now I'm into like, stop the pity party. I've seen you struggling. I know it. I'm here for it, but it's time to get up, wash your face, and just get on with your day. And I'm like, you're right. Wash my face, get on with it. And I was like, I'm good.
Oh, what better advice could anybody get? And, listen, I got to tell you, first of all, from my heart to your home, I am just so blessed in this moment. Michele, you said, don't lose the gift because of the rapping. That can be about advice people give us. It can also be about life. Right now, the rapping doesn't look that great, but the beauty of life is still there. And I just thank you so, so much. You have shared, you have taught. I can hardly wait to hug you up. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This was awesome. Mwah.